All right. So, like it says on the tin, today we're going to be going over encounter slots and how to build encounters using the classification system, which is opposed to like XP or CR. Except it's not actually opposed, it's more of a built onto it. But for the sake of actually explaining these things and how they work and to prevent common points of confusion, what I'm going to ask you to do is imagine all the knowledge you have on D&D's CR system, XP, monster builds, all that stuff. Take all of that knowledge, write it down onto a piece of paper, and then just crumple it up and chuck it out the window. We're going to start blank slate here, much like the screen that I have open. I'm going to go over from the ground up, and I'm going to explain this, hopefully, in the simplest way possible. Because I know one of the most common questions we get is how the heck does classification work? And this is going to work the same way regardless if you're doing this for Dungeons & Destiny or if you're using the additional monster mechanics that we have published for 5e. So either of these two systems, or either of those two books, the concepts behind them are exactly the same. Okay, so we got boop. You have 4 PCs, okay? That's what these are here. These are player characters, and there's 4 of them, right? Now, to make a good encounter, a good combat encounter for these 4 PCs, you need to fill up 1 box full of monsters. And here is your box right here. So 4 PCs, 1 box. And what are you putting in this box? Well, you're going to be putting in minions, soldiers, elites, majors, or ultras. And these are the 5 classifications of monsters. And if you look into the bestiary, you can see here all of the monsters have been put into their classification columns. You got Sentry Shanks are your minions, and Cursed Hoarfrost Thralls are soldiers, and Saber 2 is an ultra, so on and so forth. Now, each of these classifications is worth an amount of space in this box. So you have these spaces in this box. Each of these classifications is worth an amount of space. Minions are the smallest. They are worth 1 space. Soldiers are worth 2. Elites are worth 4. Majors are worth 8. And ultras are also worth 8. So, if you wanted to build a very basic encounter, let's say your party over here, their average level. So you have to look at the average level of the party. Let's say that is 4th, right? That means you need your box to also be 4th level. And you determine what level it is by what level of the creatures you put into the box. So if you wanted it to be all minions in here, you wanted there to be 8 monsters versus the party. Challenge rating is just another word for level. Like, CR just means level. So if we look here at minions, legionaries are 4th level minions. That means we could put 8 legionaries in this box, and it would be a good fight for your party. And it's really that simple. But what you could also do is you can mix and match. So we've got minions take up 1 space, soldiers take up 2, and elites take up 4. So if you look at our 4th level line here, we see volcanic Scorpius turrets are elites. So you could do 1 volcanic Scorpius turret, it'll take up those 4 spots, and then 4 legionaries. That is 1 box filled up, and that box is 4th level because all the monsters in the box are 4th level. So you're just taking your monsters, you're trying to match the level with the party, and you are filling up this box with however many monsters it takes. You want to get this box as close to full as possible. If you end up in a situation where it's like an elite, a minion, and a soldier, and you really don't want to add any more to the fight, you can just leave that 1 blank. That's fine. You just want to get this as close to full as possible. Now, let's go into some of the nuances of this system. First of all, you'll notice here that it is balanced by 4 player characters. That's what we have over here. We have 4 of them, but we have 8 boxes. But this means that 2 boxes are worth 1 player character. So if you had 5 player characters, you would be having 1 box plus a little extra, which just got, these 2 extra spaces, and that's it. Alternatively, if you only had 3 player characters, well, then you would ignore this one up here. And now, that setup isn't perfect. There's actually a really good reason why challenge rating in D&D works the way that it does. It is a statistical measurement of how tough that monster is. And there's a lot of factors that are going to go into that. Like, if you imagine it this way, this is the most on-the-nose, easiest example. Imagine you have the party going up against two elites, and these elites are snipers, right? And there's two of them, so they fill up this box. But the party is fighting these elites in basically a broom closet. They're snipers. Everything about their character is about long-range damage and distance, and they don't have very good melee resistances or very good melee defenses. That fight is not going to feel as even as if it were just two snipers on the other side of a canyon able to actually snipe at the party, as they are designed to do. And things like that, things like how a monster itself has been particularly designed and what its strengths and weaknesses are, those you're going to be picking up as you go as a GM. They're things you learn through trial and error, especially because you're learning what you like at the same time. There's another little bit of nuance you can do that's not just adjusting the size of your box. You can actually go plus or minus one level pretty safely. Not so much in the early levels. It's the higher level the party is, the more you can go plus or minus one level. The more situations that you can go plus or minus one level. And you get to do that because at its core, how D&D is made, it is heavily skewed towards the players, and I do mean that. And they do that on purpose because, for one, if it was an actual 50-50 shot of players versus the enemies winning, it would feel like it was harder. So when the game is skewed towards the players and it's like 65% towards the player instead of a 50-50, that ends up feeling like 50-50. So you do have a little bit of wiggle room. You are playing with fire and dancing with the devil when you do that, especially if you do like rolls out in the open and you don't fudge anything's behind the screens. But with the classification system in particular, you can go plus or minus one, but all monsters have to be within one level of each other. So if we look back here and we look back at our level 7 here, let's say we're trying to make a Taken fight. Perhaps we could put Taken Acolyte and Taken Phalanxes together, but we could not make a box and we could not fill it with both the Taken Phalanx, the Taken Acolyte, and the Taken Harpy, because the Taken Harpy is not within one level of the Taken Phalanx. They all have to be within one level of each other. And then you use whatever the highest level in the box is. So if you had one Taken Phalanx and two Taken Acolytes, that would end up being, one Elite and two Soldiers. Since the Acolyte is the highest level, that becomes a 7th level box. Classification, I know it gets, people get very confused when they read it for the first time. But what I have just explained to you here, that it's just a box, and the creatures are worth an amount of space in that box, and you're just trying to fill up that box, that is literally all there is to it. It is not fancier than that, and this is intended to be something that even a new GM who doesn't want to do a whole lot of math with XP, or, GMs who favor doing milestone over XP, you can still get the statistical benefits of using CR without having to worry about all those numbers. So when you're looking at a classification stat block here, individual CR, ignore it, whatever, just cross it out. Classification CR1 minion. That means it's a level 1 minion, and that's all you care about. You can ignore XP, especially if you're not using XP in your campaigns, just ignore that. All you care about is that right there, because that's going to tell you what the level of the monster is and how many spaces it takes up in that box. All right, that is going to wrap up then our dissection of classifications and the slot system and all that. If at any time you do have any further questions, by all means, hop down into the D&Destiny questions channel and ask. Have a good day, have a good week. I hope to see you here next week, and make good choices out there. Try not to die.